Mhm. Hello, and welcome to the Spokane Buddhist Temple's virtual service. I am Minister's Assistant Chad Donahoe, and I will be your MC. Your doshi for today's service is Reverend Melissa Opal. Before we begin, please know that we will be muting your mic. It is recommended that you turn your camera off and switch your viewing mode to speaker view. To do this, go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You should see View, where you can choose Speaker View. If you do not want your picture or name shown, please take this into account and update it accordingly. After service today, we will have an opportunity to have a Dharma discussion on the Dharma talk we heard. If you would like to stay for that and get to socialize a bit, please stay after to do so. Our opening chant is the Vandana Tisarana. The Vandana Tisarana can be found on page 5 in the service book. If you do not have your own service book, we will be providing the pages as part of our share screen function. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Kye Butsu. Namo Kye Ho. Namo Kye So. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, Namanda. The temple was founded in 1945 by the late Reverend Terao and his family. During many uncertain years, his leadership and the dedication of the Japanese community has provided an example for us to follow during our own uncertain times. We are grateful for their vision and dedication to share the Dharma in our community over the years. The causes and conditions that bring us together today are infinite and serve as a reminder that our actions do impact others. For this reason, we try our best to act in gentleness, kindness, and gratitude. We will now read the Golden Chain number 1 on page 15, led by Reverend Opal.
I am a link in Amida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Tatsu. Namo Butsu.
Please turn to page 12 for the reading of the Jodo Shinshu Creed number 1. Together, please. Entrusting the vow of the Buddha and reciting the sacred name, I shall proceed through the journey of life with strength and joy. Revering the light of the Buddha, reflecting upon my imperfect self, I shall strive to live a life of gratitude. Following the teachings of the Buddha, discerning the right path, I shall spread the true Dharma. Rejoicing in the compassion of the Buddha, respecting and aiding one another, I shall do my best to work towards the welfare of society. So the sutra chant this morning will be the Jusege on page 93.
Agan Chosegan Hishimu Jodo Shigan Fumanzo Seifu Joshogan Nga Omu Yoko Fui Dai Seishu Fusai Shobingu Seifu Joshogan Gashi Dobutsudo Nyosho Chojipo Kukyo Mishomon Seifu Joshogan Ryokujin Shonen Joe Shubongyo Shigumu Jodo Isho Tenin Shi Jinriki and Aiko Fusho Musaido Shoujo San Kumyo Kosai Shuyakunan Kai Hichi Egen Meshi Konmoan Heisoku Sho Akudo Sudatsu Zen Shumon Kosojo Manzo Iyoroshi Nishigatsu Shujuki Tenko on Fugen Ishukai Hoso Kose Kodoku Ho Dai Shuchu Seppo Shishiku Guyo Isai Butsu Gusoku Shutoku Hon Nane Shitsujoman Toku Isangayo Nyobutsumu Geichi Sudatsumi Fusho Gangaku Eri Toshi Sai Shoson Shiganya Koka Daisen no Kando Koku Shotenin To Uchin Yoke Namandabu 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 ani shikudoku myono seisai non sumonai shin ojo an rako. Namo Mirabutsu. Namo Mirabutsu. Namo Mirabutsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats.
So today's Dharma talk is entitled Living Life Without a Recipe and will be given by Reverend John Turner of the Orange County Buddhist Church.
I can't hear him.
Selected saying.
Helps if I take it off mute. I apologize.
Which is a very nice surprise. I know it's still COVID season. We're still working under a pandemic, but we're still able to put on these Dharma talks from all the wonderful volunteers. Reverend Dr. Wandra came in and put up the flowers on the onaiji chrysanthemums, and I was able to get pomegranates from my backyard as the osunae on the altar. So I would like to begin with this selected saying, number 16, on page 16. It's from Shinran Shonin, the founder of our tradition. The Nembutsu, for its practitioners, is not a practice or a good act, since it is not performed out of one's own designs. It is not a practice. Since it is not good done through one's own calculation, it is not a good act. Because it arises wholly from other power and is free from self-power, for the practitioner, it is not a practice or a good act. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. So I chose this because I would like to talk about this idea in our tradition with some metaphors and some examples. I've always found this quote confusing. As a person new to Buddhism and new to Pure Land Buddhism, I always confused self-power with self-effort, that it's a matter of trying hard or accomplishing something very difficult through discipline. And I thought that was a good thing in Buddhism. And other power, to me, sounded like a higher power, that there's some higher being out there operating on me and my life. And so I found these two things to be confusing. But I've been taught over 20 years that this is an approach. These are two different approaches to Buddhism. or you could think of it as a different way of thinking. Self-power means following rules, being disciplined, having a regimented path of gates and gradual achievement and progress. Other power is immersing yourself in the process and relaxing and getting out of your own way and letting this process do its work on you. And we do this, we use both of these techniques, I would say, in everyday life in America, but we don't think of it this way. When I started doing math, I was a self-power mathematician. I was a self-power computer programmer. I memorized and I did tons of problems. But then I had a teacher that wanted me to think, and I had to go other power. I had to immerse myself and think the way a mathematician would think, or you have to think the way a computer thinks. And once you see the world that way, it seems natural. The next step is a natural progression. You don't have to calculate or think about it. It's the only reasonable thing you can do. So the title of today's Dharma talk is two approaches. You can live your life without a recipe, or you can live life with the recipe. And right now during COVID, there's two things going on. Everyone is cooking and baking at home, and also everybody's trying to figure out how to live their life in a pandemic with stay-at-home caution and social distancing. So I wanted to share this with you. When stay-at-home order began, I think it was maybe Friday the 13th in March. It's been a long time. We started to order some of these at-home chef services because we were too scared to get to-go food. And so one of them is Blue Apron. I got very confused which one we used. I thought we used Home Chef. This is my official Home Chef notebook. But I can only find, I Googled Home Chef, but I kept finding HelloFresh. And I found out the reason why. If you look here real close, there's this little green diagonal. These two companies merged. So I think maybe Home Chef merged with HelloFresh, and now it's only HelloFresh. But it was a service, and you could order meals, and they would be delivered at your door in a box, packed in ice bags. And they came with recipes and directions. So you open up the box, you get all the little baggies out, and you lay out all your ingredients. So everything's pre-measured. You don't have to go get anything, and you don't have to measure anything. It's like on those cooking shows. It looks so easy because everything's already in a little bowl. And then what they give you is they send you a recipe to go with that meal. So I have my Home Chef recipes, and I've got my little cover, and each one of these is a meal that we cooked as a family. So they show you a picture of what it should look like when you're done, and then you follow these directions. The directions are relatively complicated, I think. It took 3 of us to get this right. And I didn't really feel like I was actually learning how to cook. I felt like I was learning how to follow recipes and how to follow directions. And it turned out great. And it was wonderful meals. And it was kind of a family project that we really enjoyed. But I thought it was hard. And I didn't really think I was getting better in terms of cooking. I was just good at executing directions and instructions. So that's a self-power approach. But I've also, another thing I've been doing besides cooking and trying to figure out how to live a life when you stay at home, I've also been gobbling up Netflix. And there's a chef, and what she suggests is a totally different approach. You master these 4 elements. If you can master these 4 elements, you can master the kitchen. So there's no recipes. Learn more about each element and cook the recipes from the show. So these elements, these four fundamental elements, almost like the four fundamental forces in physics. She says every great meal is a chemistry experiment, and it consists of four elements, flavor elements: salt, fat, acid, and heat. And I was mixed up for a while because I thought heat meant the temperature in the oven, but heat means peppers, chilies, spices. So salt, fat, acid, and spices. So we all know what salt is, but fat isn't necessarily bad fat. Olive oil, a little butter, these are necessary components to a great meal. Acid, I wasn't sure what this was either, but it's lemons, limes, cooking with wine. And then heat, we talked about spices. So what you do is you cook by taste. You open up your refrigerator, you take out what you have, and you start mixing things together, and you try to balance these flavors. And if you're low in acid, you'll taste it. If you're mixing salt, you'll taste it. So it's an intuitive approach to cooking. You understand the chemistry of it. You play with flavors. So the wonderful chef, she did a cookbook. She hosted a Netflix series called Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat that you can watch right now. Not right now, but after my Dharma talk. Her name is Samin Nosrat. She's a very enthusiastic chef. And I wanted to show you the trailer for this 4-part series on Netflix.
I've spent my entire life in pursuit of flavor. I've traveled the world to explore the things that define good cooking. Let me get some forks. No matter where I go, the same elements make food delicious.
You're laughing and
Laughing and crying. So that's pretty much the story of my life. Salt, fat, acid, and heat. Just 4 basic elements can make or break a dish. The more I travel and taste the different cuisines of the world, wow, muy gustas, the more I realize that good cooking is universal. This is my... It's so spicy.
drink some beer. You okay?
Have you ever made short ribs?
Never.
And this is such a good lesson. It's a flavor bomb in your mouth. Oh, it's so good. I'm just gonna live here now. Eat cheese and butter until I die. Be thoughtful. Wow. Be curious. Good cooking is within reach for everyone.
So cooking is something you experience. It's within all of us, and she's trying to pull it out. I want to give you a little quick hint, is that salt is the domain of Japan. Should we reboot? Okay, great, super. This is why we have AV people here. Thank you very much. So I wanted to read a little bit of description about this show and her approach. With her new show, Samin Nosrat aimed to strike a balance between cooking as aspirational and accessible. So it's something we aspire to, very accessible, very pedestrian. It's not scary French cooking. It's something that is organic within us. Just like her book, it's divided into 4 parts. 1 for each of what she considers to be the essential elements of cooking: salt, fat, acid, and heat. The 4-part series is a blend of travel, food, and cooking shows, with each episode based in a different country. Salt is in Japan. Fat is in the United States. I'm sorry, fat is in Italy. The cheeses I forgot to mention. Acid is in Mexico with the tropical fruits. And heat is in the United States, in Berkeley, California. It's more cinematic than a regular cooking show, but it also has more practical information and cooking tips than the typical food or travel show. So this is her book, Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat, Mastering the Elements of Good Cooking. So I'd like to pivot now and move towards something a little bit more Buddhist, but the approach is the same. So the approach that she takes to cooking, I think Shinran takes to Buddhist practice. And we also have a book. This is a famous book in our tradition. It's the major writings of Shinran Shonin, and it's called the Kyo-Gyo Shinsho. And it deals with teaching, practice. They use the word here, faith, and enlightenment. So again, salt in Japan, fat, cheese, Italy, olive oil, acid in Mexico, and heat in the United States, spices. And then we have for our tradition, Kyo means the teachings, Gyo means practice, Sho is realization, and this is typically the three pillars of Buddhist practice: teachings, practice, and realization, the three pillars of the path. But Shinran throws in a fourth, Shin, which you could translate as confidence or an inner knowing, faith that the process works. The only way to immerse yourself into a process is you have to believe and have faith that it's going to work. So to follow this cooking approach or to follow Shinran, you have to have faith that if you immerse yourself in a process, that it has an effect on you, a natural effect. So Shinran is a little hard to understand. And we need a little help understanding Shinran, just like we need a little help understanding how to cook. I'm going to use a couple quotes from this book. It's called Shinran, An Introduction to His Thought. And we're going to go to the section on the dissolution of self-power. And we're going to look at how Shinran says on the subject. And when I read these quotes, I kind of laughed. I think 20 years ago, I would have gotten frustrated. But Shinran takes the approach that there's no roadmap, there's no recipe. You have to immerse yourself in the four pillars of Buddhism. You have to listen, you have to bow, you have to come to temple, and you have to chant. And those four elements will make a great dish out of your Buddhist practice. So Shinran is on the path. He's not giving us a recipe. So it says here, Shinran advises his followers, simply entrust yourself to the teachings. Yet in his writings, there is no instruction concerning how one should do this, and no description of a general process. He never gives us a recipe. This recipe we need because we want one that results in a realization or awakening. But this is to be expected. Were there some course of action to be fulfilled, it would become our own practice, subject to our deliberation and designs. And then the other quote I liked very much is, of course, this is very frustrating if you're looking for recipes. Shinran gives no concrete advice, just like the great cook. This is a special characteristic of his thought, a difficulty not encountered in other forms of Buddhism. When we look to Mahayana masters in India or in China, we find that the central issues of their teachings revolved around the practices that should be performed in order to reach awakening. So I think if you went to that Simone Nosrat and you asked her, how many cups of butter should I add? Or when do I add the peppers? Or how long do I cook them? Or how hot should the oven be? I'm not sure she would tell you. I think she would say you taste it, and you taste it, and you taste it. And over time, you'll know what to add. I want to mention her approach works. We actually do this now. We don't buy Home Chef or Blue Apron. We actually open the fridge, like I mentioned, and we take out ingredients, and it's kind of haphazard. And we look at what we got, and we decide what we can make, and we taste as we go, and we create a dish. And the only problem is we don't know how to make it. We don't know how to, it's not reproducible. Every dish is unique. Every dish is special. So this quote goes on, thus, we can accept that if the path of action they expound is executed, one can attain the same realization. So this is the other masters who supply very specific recipes. The method of practice is clearly presented, and the basic problem for us is whether or not we follow their guidance. So I wanted to share with you an example that I saw in Japan on one of the Jodo Shinshu temples in Kyoto. We were walking, shopping, waiting for our ordination training to begin. And I saw this sign on the side of the Jodo Shinshu temple. It was a Higashi temple. We're Nishi, but we're like brothers and sisters. And on the sign, it was written in Japanese. It's written in Spanish. It's written in Chinese, but it was also written in English. And it just happened to catch my eye. And this is what it said in English at a Jodo temple. It said, now life is living you. I always thought I was living life. This is my life. I got a set of values. I've got a recipe. I've got a 20-year plan. I've got goals that I'm going to achieve. And this is how I'm going to execute it. But that's a self-power orientation. Another way of looking at your life is that life lives you. The pandemic is a good example of this. Our lives have completely changed. I think I heard about COVID early February, mid-February, and I didn't think anything of it. Those diseases never come to America. And then suddenly, everything changed. Everything we do has been impacted by this. Everyone's wearing masks. Everybody's socially distant. I'm the only person at temple today. The traffic, the parking lots, the commercials on TV are different. So you can fight that and be frustrated and angry, and this isn't the life this is how it wasn't supposed to be, or life lives you. You embrace change. You become part of this new reality, and you don't struggle with it. So I've always kept this in mind, that as a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, if you feel that life is now living you, you have reached another power approach to Buddhism. You've become a master, not only at cooking, but walking the path. It is something you do. The path itself is awakening. The activity of practicing is itself insight and realization. It's not something you have to grasp. It's not something you have to figure out. It's not something you have to, it's not a manual. Awakening is automatic. And so I think of self-power and other power is this way. We still have to try really hard. It has nothing to do with effort. And there's no cooking god out there. There's no deity out there. But we immerse ourselves in a process that affects us profoundly, the way we look at the world and the way we look at ourselves. So if you could please join me in Gasho. Now life is living you. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Anda Butsu, Namo Anda Butsu. So I'd like to reread this quote. This is a traditional way of doing Dharma talk.
I cannot personally thank John Turner at this time, but I think we can all be thankful that we are able to hear Dharma talks from across the country. So we will now read the three treasures on page 8, led by Reverend Melissa Opal.
Bear with me here. I apologize. Getting closer. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teachings. Namo Mirabutsu. Namo Mirabutsu. Namo Mirabutsu. Namandatsu. Namandatsu. Namandatsu.
We thank you all for attending today's virtual service. As an all-volunteer Sangha, we truly appreciate all donations and efforts. Without your continued support, we cannot host our visiting ministers, assist with continuing education, nor provide a place for all to come and listen to the Dharma. Although we cannot meet in person, many volunteers continue to maintain our temple and keep it functioning, so that when we are able to meet again, the space will be ready. If you would like to donate, you can do so by sending a check to the temple at 927 South Perry Street. Please feel free to email the temple if you have further questions. We will now have a few short announcements. If you did not submit your announcements prior to service, please type them into the chat box and we will try to get to you.
So today is the last day to order traditional mochi. So that again is the pounded rice mochi that comes in like it's like a clear milky sort of cake that you would put maybe like in a soup on New Year's Day or in your altar in your obutsudan as part of the New Year's service. Also. Mary has been hard at work at getting the pay feature back up on the website for donations, and I believe that is back up and running. So if you would like to donate that way, you should now be able to go on and do that. I know that was kind of a hindrance for some folks. And then we will be having the Joya A service on the 31st, and we will be doing that at 6:30 p.m. There'll be a link. We'll do a special link for that. And actually, I think we'll talk a little bit about that in our discussion group today, because there was just a couple different ideas floating around, and we'd love to have some input from folks on that. Otherwise, I believe that is it, unless Chad, you can remember any announcements.
No, you covered what I was going to talk about with the website. So.
Okay, perfect.
In place of Oshoko, we will now have a few moments of quiet sitting to think on the Buddha and to express our gratitude for the teachings. Please do not sign off yet, as we will have a Dharma discussion immediately following. Thank you.
And that now concludes service for Sunday, December 20th. Thank you for joining us. And then I'm going to end our Facebook live streaming. So thank you to those who joined us via social media. We hope you're all doing well. And we, of course, miss seeing everybody. Thank you.